Hello, welcome to the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel. I'm Jared, and with me is Holly. Today we're doing a review of Stonemaier Games' Finspan, a wingspan game. So this, of course, is going to be similar to Wingspan or even Wormspan, or Wurmspan, if you want to pronounce that. But Finspan is designed by David Gordon and Michael O'Connell, but developed by Elizabeth Hargrave, who originally made Wingspan. Now, Finspan is essentially I would call it like a simplified, simpler version of Wingspan, and it does things a little bit differently. And it, of course, is about fish instead of birds or instead of dragons. Um, if we've played all of these games, obviously, and I think your preference on which of these that you like best is going to depend on whether the theme speaks to you, whether the gameplay like strategy involved speaks to you, and basically how long of a game you want. For instance, I think Finspan is probably the most streamlined and less player interactive strategic than some of the other ones that they've made. And I would also say that it's a little easier to teach, a little easier in terms of overall rule set. And I mean, that makes sense. This is like the third one of the series. So you've kind of stripped down what makes the game, considered a span game, if that's a thing. But in any case, I'm going to try to not just kind of keep comparing this to every other Wingspan and Wormspan game, and just kind of talk about Finspan on its own. But yeah, it's essentially themed after collecting fish, and the fish in the game are cards that you're going to place on your own personal board. Um, it is a vertical board because, of course, in fishing, you're going to be dropping your lure in, different layers of the ocean, top, middle, and lower layers of the ocean. So that's kind of how their habitats are arranged, as well as in three columns of like distance from shore is kind of my interpretation of it. And there's some color coding and like iconography to help kind of keep these three columns unique and separate. Reason that they're done like that is there are, of course, fish cards that are limited to certain regions, i.e. one of the columns, or to certain depths, either how high or low on your board they're allowed to be. There's no other restriction as far as when you place them, like you don't have to wait until, a fish behind it is placed or anything like that. It just has to follow its own rule set, and you pay the cost. Um, Usually the cost is discarding fish or young fish, which are kind of like, just baby fish tokens on your board, or eggs, which is the other common currency. And unlike other span games, you're going to have all of these tokens taking up space on your board. You're not collecting specifically food tokens in Finspan. You're just continually growing out the fish from egg tokens, and then they turn into young, and then cards that use them can discard them from your board. There are some limitations. Every space on your board can only hold one egg and one school of fish, which happens when three small ones get together into a single space. You do get more points for having schools of fish instead of a single point for every fish. That when they group up together, they're worth more. You get points for eggs, and then of course every fish card shows its point value as well. So throughout the game, as the 4 rounds proceed, you're just continually adding fish and adding eggs, and then growing the young tokens to move around the board and take actions that allow them to swim to different sections and group up into schools. And that is essentially what's going on in Finspan on a very top level.
So you were talking about how it's the most streamlined version, and this is actually my favorite version.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really enjoy Finspan. Um, I, as you know, the ocean terrifies me, but I really like the different kinds of fish there are out
Mm-hmm.
there because they're really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So it's really cool to be able to look at the different kinds of fish, and I like that you have the whole food chain going. It's
Hmm.
very contrary to Finding Nemo, and the fish are food.
Yes, they are.
But yeah, I really like it. My thing with Wingspan was the dice, and that's gone.
Hmm.
Um,
No more
and
dice for food.
maybe it is because it is a more streamlined version that I like it so much, or maybe it's the fish.
Yeah, it could be a combination of
It
those.
could be.
Those are some of the biggest distinguishing features. The artwork, of course, is beautiful.
Yes.
All the cards are still unique, and so you're going to get, a new fish to learn about every time you draw a card. You're going to have your own cards like on the left of the board that are going to be, either usable to discard as a payment or playable as a card to enter you know, your habitat.
Mm-hmm.
And there are carnivores in this, just similar to other span games. So what's unique about this one, though, is you're allowed to essentially like overbuild on existing fish. So when there's a fish on the board, whether it's pre-printed or an existing card, you can build over them as long as the new fish is bigger. And then there are some carnivore fish that require you to eat a smaller fish to place it onto your board in the first place. Um, Also, at the end of the game, just like tucked cards in other games, this one you get a point for every eaten fish that is below, any of your cards. So essentially, everything that you do will give you some level of points, and it's usually 1 point for, eaten fish, 1 point for egg, 1 point for fish, little ones, the baby young,
Young.
and then more points for getting them together as schools. So you're playing fish. You're also, by placing them in certain areas, triggering new abilities. And what that is like is when you place your diver token at the top of the column, you're going to be able to trigger every section special ability as long as there's at least one fish in that column or in that section of that column. And so there, again, there's three sections. When you go down, there's like the sunset, the twilight, and the midnight. And every board has a pre-printed fish in each column in one of those areas. So no matter how you start, you're always going to have one of these actions trigger every time you go dive in those areas. And since you start filling out fish into every region, they're going to trigger every action that happens. Of course, the fish cards themselves, there are activated abilities on a lot of those cards as well that trigger as your diver goes down that particular column, in addition to the board action that triggers if a fish is in that section. So again, your actions get more and more detailed, more and more, busy as you go. But that's what allows you to either, collect more cards, draw, play more cards, move fish around,
Hatch eggs.
hatch egg, gain eggs, hatch eggs. All these kinds of actions are kind of what you're doing as you trigger these benefits with your diver tokens. But yeah, you just kind of play 4 rounds of using all of your tokens in whatever way that you want to be efficient. And just like other span games, there are goals for each round. So there's going to be scoring throughout the game. At the end of each round, you're going to score one of the, whatever the active goal is. It could be like a point for every egg, or whoever has the most, XYZ type of fish. Then you get a certain score point added there for that round. And then there's final scoring at the end. So because of all that, it's very streamlined in feel, and it definitely doesn't play as long as the previous span games. And like I said, if people enjoy the fish theme and want something that's a little bit easier to play and still a lot of fun, and taking the core concepts, this I think can be a winner for a lot of people. I know for you, this is like your favorite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say Wingspan is kind of the heaviest of the three, and that's not Wingspan is not a game that I would play with my kids, and they're like 10, 12 years old. But Finspan, we were able to get to the table with our kid kids, and they enjoyed it. I think, you know, as far as understanding the game, enjoying, you know, the art and, you know, how it plays. And again, it doesn't take too long that their attention spans kind of didn't run out. So I think this could be a good overall game for families, um, for your game night, and we enjoyed it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
I know there's solo modes, which I did not get a chance to play through. But just like most Stonemaier games these days, you've got a solo option to play with the Finspan. But yeah, it's a beautiful game. It's a lot of fun, and it's kind of cool to see your personal board be done vertically instead of like the typical horizontal. But you know, it's pretty cool.
That's maybe another thing is the aesthetics.
Yeah.
I like the blues and stuff.
Sure. And even the cards themselves are placed horizontally, you know, because they're fish, so they're going to be swimming left to right, as opposed to the bird cards or dragon cards, which are done vertically, which makes sense for those types of creatures. But you know, you shift that perspective and you get rid of some of the dice of getting food, and then just kind of keep it with cards and eggs and baby fish, and that's it. So it's pretty fun. Doesn't play too long. You can play up to 5. I would still think 4 is kind of the most that I would recommend, just because of the amount of space it takes up on the table with those vertical boards. But you could do 5. I mean, you just need a bigger, probably a big round table would be good for that. But yeah, I recommend it.
I do too.
It's a lot of fun. So thank you guys for watching our thoughts on Finspan and this review. Please stick around on the channel to check out more of our reviews, as well as tutorials and unboxings and things like that. But until the next video, I've been Jared.
I'm Holly.
Thanks for watching.